The Pentagon has confirmed it's pulling approximately 5,000 American troops from Germany. That's roughly 14% of the entire U.S. military presence there, and the withdrawal will happen within 6 to 12 months. This comes directly after German Chancellor Friedrich Merz publicly described the U.S.-Israeli campaign against Iran as humiliating to the United States, and President Trump responded the only way Trump responds, with immediate, concrete consequences. NATO says it's now assessing the details, oil markets are already rattled, and European capitals are watching this unfold with what I can only describe as barely concealed panic. Joining me now are Marcus Webb, our defense and security analyst, and Sophia Reeves, our economics and markets editor. Marcus, let me start with you. Is Trump blowing up the Western alliance, or is he the first American president in decades with the guts to actually enforce it?
Thanks, Emma. Look, let's be absolutely clear about what's happening here. This is not a tantrum. This is accountability, and it is decades overdue. Germany has sheltered under the American security umbrella since 1949, has consistently failed to meet the NATO 2% GDP defense spending threshold, and its chancellor has now chosen deliberately, to publicly humiliate the United States while American service members are actively engaged in a shooting war against Iran. And then Berlin is surprised that there are consequences? Douglas Murray has been saying for years that Europe has made a catastrophic error, assuming American guarantees are permanent and unconditional, and he is being proven right in real time. The 35,000 American troops currently in Germany are there because of a Cold War commitment that Germany has done almost nothing to reciprocate with genuine burden sharing. My only concern, and this is where I'll put my flag in the ground, is that 5,000 troops is actually too modest a signal. If Merz faces no real strategic pain for those remarks, the lesson European leaders will draw is that the cost of publicly undermining Washington is manageable.
But Marcus, here's what critics are saying, and I want to push you on this. Isn't removing troops from Germany during an active conflict with Iran, when European stability arguably matters more than ever, essentially punishing your most important allies precisely when you need them most? And Sophia, what's your take on this from an economic standpoint?
Well, look, I think Marcus is right on the principle, but I think he's dramatically underestimating the economic self-harm here, and that's what concerns me. The United States is pulling troops from Germany at the exact moment a global oil price crisis triggered by the Iran conflict is hitting European economies hardest. Those European economies are directly connected to American export markets, to American financial institutions, to the global supply chains that American business depends on. If this troop withdrawal accelerates a broader NATO credibility crisis, you don't just get a diplomatic headache, you get risk-off sentiment in global markets, you get uncertainty premiums baked into energy prices, and you get the kind of geopolitical instability that costs American businesses real money. Germany running below the 2% NATO threshold is a genuine problem. I completely agree. But the data suggests the smarter play is sustained financial and diplomatic pressure, not visible military retrenchment that hands a propaganda gift to Beijing and Moscow simultaneously.
I hear what Sophia is saying, but with respect, that misses the point entirely. Sustained diplomatic pressure. Emma, we've had sustained diplomatic pressure for 30 years. Obama applied it, Bush applied it, even Trump's first term applied it. Germany nodded, made vague commitments, and kept spending below target while running enormous trade surpluses with the United States. At some point, the only language that works is the language of consequences. And yes, Sophia's right that there are economic risks in instability. But here's what she's not saying. The greater long-term economic risk is an American security guarantee that nobody believes in anymore because it's never enforced. That's the real market confidence killer. When adversaries stop believing American commitments are real, that's when things get genuinely expensive.
Here's what I want to know, and this is the forward-looking question that I think really matters. In 6 months, does this end with Germany finally spending what it's supposed to spend, NATO stronger for it? Or does this crack open into something far more dangerous? Sophia, where do you see this playing out?
The way I see this playing out, there are really two plausible tracks. The optimistic track is that Merz, facing real domestic political pressure over German security exposure, accelerates defense spending commitments, and finds language that de-escalates with Washington, and Trump banks the win and stabilizes the relationship. That's possible. The pessimistic track, and frankly the one I think the current trajectory points toward, is that the public nature of this confrontation makes it politically impossible for Merz to be seen capitulating to Trump, which means the rhetoric hardens on both sides. The troop reduction becomes a floor rather than a ceiling, and European security architecture enters a genuinely uncertain period, all while the Iran situation remains live and oil markets stay volatile.
Here's what concerns me most, and I think this is the scenario that nobody in Brussels wants to say out loud. If Beijing watches 5,000 American troops leave Germany in the middle of an active Middle East conflict, watches NATO scrambling to assess the details, watches Washington and Berlin in a public feud, the signal being sent to Xi Jinping about the cost of aggression against Taiwan is not a reassuring one. History tells us that visible Western disunity doesn't just weaken the alliance, it actively invites the kind of opportunism that starts wars. The risk isn't just that NATO gets weaker in Europe. The risk is that the ripple effects reach the Indo-Pacific, and that's the threat that should be keeping everyone awake.
A transatlantic spat that starts in Berlin could end up deciding the fate of Taiwan. Now that's a thought to keep you up at night. Marcus Webb, Sophia Reeves, thank you both. One thing is absolutely certain, someone in the Chancellery in Berlin is not sleeping well tonight, and they've only got Friedrich Merz's big mouth to thank for it.